guys, Comic Boom here to review Detective Comics issue 1000. Wow, 80 years of Batman, guys. We have an issue here that has a $9.99 cover price on it. It's written by Warren Ellis, Paul Dini, Tom King, Brian Michael Bendis, Peter J. Tomasi, James T. Tinian IV, Scott Snyder, Kevin Smith, Christopher Priest, Dennis O'Neil, Jeff Johns, and I'm sure various others. Artists by Alvaro Martinez, Joel Jones, Justin Nugent, Alex Maleev, Jim Lee, Kelly Jones, Steve Epting, Tony S. Daniel, Greg Capullo, Neil Adams, Doug Mankey, and various others. This is a 96-page comic book, number 1000, beautifully done. I like the stories. I want to tell you about my favorite, and I'm going to try to give a quick synopsis of all of it. So let's get started, shall we? The first story in Detective Comics 1000 is one written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo, and that is a story called The Longest Case. Now, what's interesting about this story is it builds up a lot of anticipation because it's Batman. He's talking about a case that he's been working on for many, many years, putting pieces together, and it takes him from all over the world of him putting together the pieces, these minor little clues that he puts together until finally when you get to the end of the story, and lo and behold, wow, he meets the Guild. And that's what's interesting. It looks like where Scott Snyder has introduced a detective group called the Guild, and it consists of Hawkman, Detective, Bobo the Detective Chimp, even Elongated Man, and I believe Sue Digby, his wife, is there as well, and Slam Bradley from Batman lore. Batman doesn't seem to know who Slam Bradley is, seem to have met him, doesn't seem to recall meeting him in the past. I know Slam Bradley has been in Catwoman comics in the past. And basically, there's even the Question there, Martian Manhunter, Hawkgirl. So basically, this is a guild of detection. And as Slam Bradley explains to Batman, that basically this guild of detection tries to solve all the unsolved cases in the universe, ranging from the mystical to the mundane to the more scientific to the more fantastical. It covers the entire universe, all the unsolved mysteries. The Guild of Detection consists of all the mysteries and all the clues, and you go there to try to solve the unsolvable crimes. And of course, Batman was there because, as Slam Bradley says, they're all there because of the chase. It's about the questions. And it reminds me of a quote from one of my favorite poets, which wasn't quoted in the story, but basically the idea being that you live the questions. And if you live the questions, you will find yourself one day living into the answers. And so I like even the themes of this story. So the idea that now we have this Guild of Detection consisting of DC Comics, or the DC Universe's greatest detectives, the Guild of Detection. And I really like that. It's kind of nice to see that, and especially to have Bobo, the detective chimp. It's great to see Elongated Man and Sue Digby there, even though they don't talk much in this story. Slam Bradley, it's great to see him. Martian Manhunter, Hawkgirl, and who else is going to end up being members of the Guild of Detection? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But a really good story. Now the next story is called Manufacture for Use, and it's written by Kevin Smith. It's actually a really good story. It's Jim Lee does the pencils on it. And I like Kevin Smith's take on one aspect of the mythology of the origin of Batman, and that is namely the gun. And it's a wonderful story of Batman basically searching for the gun and ultimately finding the gun that was used to murder his parents on that fateful night that, of course, resulted in him ultimately becoming Batman. And what he does with the gun is very, very interesting. When he finally acquires the gun that changed his life forever by taking his parents' lives and putting him on the path to become Batman, what he does with that gun is kind of I'm not going to spoil that aspect of it. I'll just tell you to read the story. It was a nice, well-written story, and again, what he does with that gun once he acquires it, because Batman doesn't like guns, and for very good reasons. So why would he want to acquire the gun that murdered his parents? Why is that so important to him? He's already solved the murder, he's solved the case. Why does he care about the weapon itself? You'll have to read the story and find out, but it's very well done, and very interesting take on it by Kevin Smith. And again, beautiful pencils, of course, by the illustrious Jim Lee. Paul Dini writes a story called The Legend of Newt Brody. It's drawn by Dustin Nugent on the pencils and Derek Prudolph on the inks. And who is Newt Brody? Well, let me put it to you this way. I like the idea of it because I like how Matches Malone is Batman's secret identity in the criminal underworld of Gotham, while Newt Brody is a sort of an undercover figure as well, but he's secret identity of all the members of the Batman family that they all use from time to time to infiltrate the various criminal networks of Gotham, ranging from the Joker, the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, Two-Face, etc., etc. So Newt Brody has a reputation himself for getting around, and all members of the Bat family have at one time impersonated this imaginary figure that they've created called Newt Brody. And the adventures that this Newt Brody has gotten into is quite good, and it's a nice little story. It's a great story. All these stories really so far have been really good. It's really hard to pick a favorite, which I'll try to when I get to the end of this. Warren Ellis's story, drawn by Becky Cloonan, is called Batman's Design. It's very much sort of a psychological thriller in a sense that it has Batman trying to take down a group of terrorists that have sort of metahuman abilities or propped up metahuman abilities through various ways and manners, and so he likes that because he doesn't have to hold back. If Batman knows that you got some level of artificially enhanced metahuman abilities, he likes that because he doesn't have to hold back to kick your butt. And so he goes all out against taking these terrorists down. And it's sort of an interesting take on it. It's mostly fisticuffs, but it shows Batman's confidence and his genius and his brilliance and his detective work in taking down these terrorists as he sort of sets them up. And as Batman says in the story, you know, if you don't have a plan, then you're going to end up being part of somebody else's plan. So that's why Batman always has a plan, because if he doesn't plan and prepare, somebody else will do it for him, and that's usually not a good thing. So that was a very interesting story, and it's very interesting how the Batman ultimately sort of psychologically takes down the lead terrorist figure at the end of the story. Very well done. The story by Denny O'Neil, which is drawn by Steve Epting, basically stars the old Leslie Tompkins, or the older version of Leslie Tompkins, because I know lately she's been drawn a lot younger, or her present rebirth incarnation is somewhat younger, but there's a story by Denny O'Neil draws a much older Leslie Tompkins, and it's kind of a darker one. She's got a very negative view of Batman. She's always been in the older incarnation of Leslie Tompkins always sort of put Batman down. She was always disappointed that Bruce Wayne became Batman. At least there was a significant period of time in Batman lore where Leslie Tompkins, who helped basically, she was like the maternal figure for young Bruce Wayne. She was disappointed when she discovered that he became Batman as he got older. And in this particular story, beautifully drawn by Steve Epting, she sort of confronts Batman and she scolds him, and Batman tells her, look, I don't need a lecture. And then of course they end up getting attacked by some street thugs, and Batman takes them out very somewhat viciously because they pulled a gun on him and Leslie Tompkins. And Batman is quite vicious, and Leslie basically scolds and ends up putting Batman down, and believes and almost suggests that Batman is the monster because he used greater force than the thugs used against them, and suggesting that in her mind Batman was just as bad as they were because of the manner in which he took them down. And then that was really the end of the story. So it was kind of a depressing story. So anyways, very interesting take on it, and probably one of the ones that will, I think, bring back some good memories of the old 70s Batman. Christopher Priest's story, that is beautifully illustrated by Neil Adams, is called The Heretic. And I gotta say, it's my most disappointing story. It's not very, I just didn't like it very much. It basically just involves Batman solving a murder of a kid that's killed that he knew many years before in Hong Kong, and he was a member of he believes that it's linked to some former members of the League of Assassins, so he confronts Ra's al Ghul. It's beautifully illustrated, and Neil Adams' art, it just shines, because I always like Neil Adams' illustrations of Ra's al Ghul. I think nobody draws Ra's al Ghul better than Neil Adams did, because that classic 1970s version of Ra's al Ghul as illustrated by Neil Adams, to me, is just spot on. So it's beautifully drawn. The story just leaves much to be desired here. I think it's a little bit too simplistic, and then it basically ends with Batman just sort of warning these punk kids who killed another one of their former members that broke off of them that he was gonna, he was going to take them down one day, and that was really it. And unfortunately, it says the beginning, so it means that we're going to get more of that sort of storyline, and it's really, I really don't want it too much. Suffice to say, the Heretic definitely is my least favorite of the story here, but it's okay. But it's not something that should have been in here. We needed something by Neil Adams, certainly, but not this story. Carrying on. The Brian Michael Bendis story. It involves the Penguin, and it's, of course, not surprisingly, it's drawn by Alex Maleev, who seems to be his go-to artist, and Alex Maleev also does the colors. Josh Reed does the letters. It's called I Know, and it involves a future story of the Penguin as an old man confronting Bruce Wayne as an old man in a wheelchair overlooking Gotham Harbor in front of Wayne Manor. And basically the Penguin confessing, telling Bruce Wayne that he always knew that Bruce Wayne was Batman, that he discovered it, and that he wanted to tell Bruce Wayne why he was letting him live, because basically he had an opportunity to take out Bruce Wayne and to basically kill Bruce Wayne all those years before, but he didn't because Gotham needed Batman, because basically he needed Batman, that even the villains needed Batman, and some such psychological mabble whatever. It's okay. I actually really like the art. That's another thing that fascinated me about it. The story was less. It was kind of like but it was interesting. It ends with obviously even Bruce Wayne. Batman as Bruce Wayne in a wheelchair could easily take out the Penguin, and that's exactly what how the story ends. It was okay. Doesn't really whet my appetite for a Bendis written Batman, if I'm brutally honest. But it's okay. Somewhat, it's very meh, but not bad. Beautiful art by Alex Maleev. My second favorite story is written by Jeff Johns, called The Last Crime in Gotham. And it's the artist is Kelly Jones. It's beautifully illustrated. Kelly Jones is a classic artist. I mean, I believe it was through the late 90s, early 2000s. It was Kelly Jones. Anyways, very well done. And basically, it involves a Batman investigating, along with Commissioner Gordon, sort of a Last Supper where a lot of villains seemed to be killed at this Last Supper. You can tell it's about 20 years in the future. Batman's older, Catwoman's older. Damian's older, and they're investigating basically the murder of a large number of the last vestiges of criminals in Gotham City, and it ends up being revealed that it's the son of the Joker that did the killing, and at the end of doing the killing, the son of the Joker kills himself, and this takes place the night after that the Joker himself dies in prison. Ultimately revealing the fact that the streets are safe. Batman is basically won. The Bat family is grown. It's huge. And he's won. And it's really the end of an era. And Batman ultimately has his victory, and everything seems safe. And then it flashes back to you discover that this was more of a birthday wish for Batman. That it's not really real. It seems to be, it's what Batman wishes. It's a future that Batman hopes for, where he eliminates crime. And so it's a very good story by Jeff Johns. It reveals a potential future that, is it an actual future, or is it likely just something that Batman is wishing? Is it likely something that is just it's a wish that Bruce Wayne makes during one of his Batcave birthday parties that just involves him and Alfred, as it basically is revealed at the end of it. So, interesting story. I liked it. Had a nice little misdirect at the end. James Tynion IV writes a story called The Precedent. It's in this issue, and the art is by Alvaro Martinez Bueno, and the colors are by Brad Anderson. And The Precedent is sort of a Batman and Robin tale. The precedent being that reflecting that Batman initially, before Batman had a Robin, he had some angst and some anxiety that he discussed with Alfred about whether or not he should even have a Robin. Should he bring Dick Grayson in to even have a young Robin? Because he didn't want to set a precedent, because what if it doesn't work out, and what if it leads to something more, and what if this balloons into something terrible, and what have you. And of course he ended up doing it, and the precedent was established, and the very short story ends with that classic scene of a young Dick Grayson, a young Robin, swearing an oath to Batman. And it was a nice little short story, and it was a feel-good story, and it was nice to see it in here. Tom King's story in the issue is actually one of my favorite. I got to give Tom King some credit. I actually quite enjoyed it. It's called Batman's Greatest Case, and it is, the artists are Tony S. Daniels and Joel Jones do the pencils on it. They do a really good job. Tomo Murray do the colors, and Clayton Cowles does the lettering. And it basically involves just the Batman family meeting on a roof for a photo op. All the Batman family. It stars all the Batman families, all the Robins, the Cassandra Cain, spoiler, etc., etc. Everyone's there, and they all get their photo up on top of a building. But Batman's late. They're wondering where Batman is, and it ends up that it's there for a photo opportunity. And Batman wants a picture of him and the Batman family, and they have this huge, gorgeous photo op, and every member of the Batman's family in it. And it ends with him taking that photo, with Batman taking that photo, and basically putting it at the graveside of his parents, as a way of sort of saying, look, I have my family now, everything's okay. And it's a really feel-good story. I'm not going to go into more detail into it, other than to say that I really enjoyed it. This is Tom King's wheelhouse. Tom King is not good at doing longer narratives as his Disaster and Batman shows, but he's really good at doing short stories like this, because this is one of my favorite stories in the entire Detective Comics 1000. This is really well done. I got to give Tom King credit. Again, he's much better at the short stories where there isn't a longer narrative, as this clearly shows. And then, of course, finally we get to Peter Tomasi's story, which is basically the introduction of the Arkham Knight, which I actually was really disappointing. It was really, really disappointing. It just ends with it's just a long speech with the Arkham Knight making observations about the DC Universe Batman, and talking about how Batman sounds like bad man. And I thought it was extremely derivative, very no risks were taken. I guess I can understand that. Maybe you don't want to really rock the boat for Detective Comics 1000. I would have thought maybe you'd want to. I would have thought you'd want to take a little bit more risks. But it was really disappointing. I was really expecting at least some sort of adventure, something so you kick off the Arkham Knight storyline. Clearly that's not going to happen until Detective Comics 1001. I would have preferred that there be no Arkham Knight introduction in this 1000 issue. It was a complete waste. It didn't whet the appetite. It actually, he even looked kind of stupid the way he was drawn at the end. I wasn't impressed. And by the way, I don't collect and read I don't get the video games, so I don't care about the video games. It's just not knowing nothing about Arkham Knight. There really is fundamentally nothing interesting about the character as it's introduced in Detective Comics 1000 here. I thought that was very badly done. It was not well done at all. It was, although in a sense it was, Tomasi sort of took the opportunity to tell a history of Batman as maybe the Arkham Knight saw it. So in that respect, it's okay. But we already got that through Tomasi's previous issues, in the previous issues 995 to 999, and I loved issues 995 to 999. We didn't need it again. It was a waste. It was a waste of pages. Now I realize we got 96 pages to begin with, but you should have really had some other stories there, because it was wasted. It was wasted. It should have been something different. I don't know what, but that was a big miss for me. But again, the art, at least by Doug Mankey, is fantastic. Story itself, not so much. Yeah, and that basically ends it for Detective Comics 1000. Overall, I didn't mind it. I have to give some kudos to Tom King. Tom King has my favorite story in it. And second favorite story, I'd have to give it to Jeff Johns. And overall, not bad. Not bad. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing super great. It is what it is. As a tribute issue, I'd have to give it a 7 out of 10. And the art, artistically, I got to give it a 9 out of 10. It was really good. Guys, tell me what you think of Detective Comics issue 1000. And until next time, hit the subscribe button. Follow me on Twitter at Metropolis40. And until next time, Comic Boom out.